Hi everyone, welcome back to the Etymon Project. Today's going to be another problem in my NACLO walkthrough series, and this one was actually requested by someone on the last video, and I'm so sorry that I'm only getting to it now. I was kind of just swamped with a lot of college stuff going on and everything. It was a pretty busy time, but I'm definitely gonna have more time now, and I'm planning to make a lot more videos and also continue the vocab series that I've been doing, get my second video out for that sometime this week, and even maybe start a new series about Latin, which is another one of my interests. So that's what's going to be coming next. But for this video, I'm going to be going over the problem Fox out of the box, which is from the past open round this past year. I did this problem in the competition, and I do remember I had a pretty hard time with it, so it was fun to revisit it and try to understand it a little better and see where I went wrong, and I think I have a better sense of it now, which is good. But yeah, let's just look at the problem. So we have this fox who's looking for his friend, and he's going through this house, and it's showing all these different positions with the fox going different places in and out of the house. And ignore the sentences. I kind of just did that because it's really hard to flip back and forth really fast. Normally you would have 2 pages, so it'd be a lot easier to compare them, which is kind of a constraint, I guess, for a lot of my problems. So they can't be too long. It just makes it a lot harder to go back and forth between everything. But I basically just copied the sentences over here to make it a little easier, so hopefully it's clear enough. But yeah, back to the sentences. Down here we have some sentences in Totonac, and each of these sentences describes one of the positions of the fox. So this sentence number 1 would correspond to the first position, and I've copied it over just for convenience. And then we have 9 of these sentences, and below each of the sentences is an English, not a necessarily direct translation, as they say. You're not supposed to assume that they're direct translations. It's kind of just to clarify the position that they're in, but it's not necessarily going to be word for word the same thing. And yeah, and then we have over here the problem is to construct a Totonac sentence to describe each of these events and basically just translate from English into Totonac. So let's go back to the sentences and the positions and try to figure out what each of these words could mean, what's going on here. For these types of problems, what I like to do is I try to compare all of the sentences first and see what most of the similarities are or differences. And it might be easier to just do it here because they're all going to be here. And one of the things I'm noticing is that every sentence ends in this word wakni. As you can see, I'm highlighting here. So if we consider what this word could mean, I think it kind of has to mean fox, because that's the only word that's in every sentence. The fox is always going to be the subject of the sentence. He's always doing something in the sentence. So all the sentences are about the fox. So we can kind of assume that wakni means fox. We can just write that down. And then after that, you can kind of notice that there's another phrase that's repeated a lot, which is this en chiki. In a lot of the sentences. And then there's also this K chiki here, which could possibly mean something similar, so we'll highlight it. And if we consider which sentences have this word and which sentences don't, it seems to be that all of the sentences related to the house seem to have the en chiki or chiki, because all these top 7 sentences are related to the house. There's the house, there's the chimney, the hole in the roof, the back door, the flower box. So yeah, all of them are related to the house, and then the ones down here that don't have it, they're not related to the house. And if we go back, we can see that all of the first 7 are within the house, as you can see, and then the last 2 sentences are outside of the house. So that's why they probably don't have this en chiki word. So we can kind of assume that chiki, again, we're not sure what kind of form it is because there's a different one here, but the commonality is this chiki word. So we're going to assume this means house. And then on the flip side, we can think about what the word in this similar position would be over here. And I'm guessing that just like these 7 sentences up here, the Kitokawaksni is also going to relate to where the fox overall is. So I'm going to assume it maybe means outside or the ground. It's just something not of the house. So we can write that here. Okay. And now we can kind of think about in a more detail what these first parts of the sentences are. There's a lot of them, and I think a good place to start comparing would be these last 2 sentences, 8 and 9. And again, sorry, I guess I should be using this part more because it has the actual pictures, which is what we're supposed to be translating. But yeah, let's look at 8 and 9, and you'll see that the only difference between these 2 sentences is the first part of them. So tuju-yi and tukuta. So that's got to be the difference between the fox going in the hole and the fox coming out of the hole. So, okay, let's mark this green for going in, and then let's mark this yellow for going out. So we can also write that here. Tuju-yi equals going in, and tukuta equals going out. Let's move that over here so we can have like a little bit of a word bank going. Ooh, there's not much space. Okay, there's a bit of space here, and I'll make it smaller. Okay, so now that we have that, we can see if we can find it in any other places. And okay, so I see that in sentence number 5, we have another instance of tuju-yi, so I'm going to highlight that green. And then up here at number 2, we have an instance of tukuta, so I'm going to highlight that in yellow. And these seem to be consistent with our current definitions because in number 5, the fox is going into the flower box, as you can see in this translation. And then for the other one, the fox is going out of the chimney, as you can see in the sentence for number 2. So that aligns with what we have so far. And another thing we can kind of get from this is that the verb seems to always be in this position. It kind of seems to suggest like what the action of the fox is doing, because as you can remember in these two, the only difference between them is this one is going in and this one is going out, which means that this is going to be some sort of verb for the fox. And something else we can get from this is kind of the position of the verb in these sentences. It kind of seems like for these it was in the first position, like right here, but over here it was in kind of the second position, with this like additional phrase at the beginning tacked on. So that kind of makes me think it's going to be the same for all these others that have an extra phrase at the beginning, the akpu and lakpa. And then like for the other ones like tampi, so the verb is probably going to be tanu-yi, taksti. And then this is another one where they don't have the initial phrase. So we know where the verbs are going to be, and that means we can compare more sentences. If we compare 2 and 3, again, this is a very similar action, and the only difference is that one is going out and one is going back in. If we look at the verb for number 3, we see we have tanu-yi, which is interesting because it's different from the first verb we have for going in, but we can probably try to figure out what the distinction is between them later, but it's just good to have kind of a note of what tanu-yi means. So tanu-yi also means going in. And we can also pick a color for it. We'll do this blue. We also see a tanu-yi over here, so I'll highlight that, and then one over here, so I'll highlight that. And then that just leaves one more verb, so this taksti word that we see over here and over here, it seems to, in both cases, describe the fox kind of leaving the house. In number 4, he's going out of the back door, and then in number 7, he's coming out from underneath the house. And we can go back to just confirm that. 4, he's coming out of the back door, and then 7, he's coming out from under. So yes, it seems like taksti is another word that means going out, which makes sense because we have 2 words for going in, so I'm just gonna put them together. Okay, so we don't exactly know the distinction between these 2 versions of going in we have and the 2 versions of going out we have, but for now, let's just put that aside and try to figure out what these words at the beginning mean. Oh, I didn't underline taksti. Let me do that really quick. Okay, so we have these words at the front that seem to mean something else that we're not really sure of yet. We have like lakpa, we have akpu. And if we kind of just observe like where the fox is in each of these scenarios, it seems like it's describing the more specific location of the fox. So for this one, for number 2 and number 3, we have akpu in both sentences, which suggests that it could mean something like on the roof or, you know, like above the house. So we can add that to our word bank. Let's start one over here that's kind of like these smaller words. What else do we have? We have tampi in 7 and 6. One of them is coming out from under the house, and then one of them is going in under the house. So I'm guessing that means something like under the house. Okay, we also have this word lakpa, which I'm assuming means something like the flower box or the side of the house, because at number 5 we have this statement that the fox goes into a flower box on the side of the house. So that's kind of describing what's happening, and it seems like the fox is, I guess, on the side, so we can write like flower box side. Okay, and then this word chakwe, let's look at the sentence for 4 again. He's going out the back door, so I'm assuming that means like back of the house or something. And again, we know that these words at the beginning of like the verb phrase describe where exactly the fox currently is. So that's how we know it has to describe like back. And now we go back to these 3 sentences over here that don't actually have a word at the beginning. And I guess it just seems like there's not a more specific marker. For number 1, it's a little interesting because we don't have anything like front of the house like we did with the quite up here. And instead we have this word kachiki, which we knew was something related to the house, but we didn't know exactly what it meant. And I think now we can kind of see that it's probably describing the front of the house or the front door in some way. Maybe it's just a more specific word instead of house that the speaker's using here to say that this fox is really going into the front door of the house or the front of the house. And that kind of just makes sense because, like we said before, this en chiki phrase is just the location where the fox is going. So he's going into the house. It's like the place where the fox is going. So in this case, it's just a different place where he's going. He's going into the front door or the front of the house. Okay, so now that we have all of this information, let's go back over here and try to figure out what the difference is between tuju and tanu and then tukuta and taksti. We can just pick a random one to start with. Let's just start with going in because it's the first one. Okay, so if we think about the similarities between the blue sentences, at first glance it could seem like these foxes are all going into the house, which seems like a good similarity. And then if we look at the green ones, they seem that they're all going out of the house because this fox came out of the house to go in the flower bed. This fox is already out of the house. So it seems like that could be the distinguishing feature. So we can write that as like a hypothesis. The green ones are going out of house, and then the blue ones are going into house. However, if we look at the red and yellow ones, we see that there's really no distinction between whether they're going in and out of the house, and that's because going out, by definition, means that they're going out of the house. So all of them are coming out of the house. This one is, and this one is already out of the house. So that really can't be the distinction for the yellow and red, which makes us think we should probably reconsider our one for the blue and green as well. And if we look again, we can see something that might not seem as obvious first glance, but one of the main distinguishing features between the blue and the green is that these green ones are both going into these small little spaces. And you can just visually see that, like this fox, he's basically hiding in this tiny hole. And then this green one, he's also hiding in this little box. Whereas with the blue ones, they're going into this huge space. They're going into this big house. Same with the 6. I guess he's not really going into a huge space, but it's not an enclosed space. He's not like going into something. He's just going in to like this bigger area. So that might be kind of harder to see, and it's definitely something I didn't get at, but that is going to be the distinction. And we can also see it in the yellow one, as this fox is coming out of this small little container of the chimney, and this other yellow sentence has a fox coming out of a small little hole. So the yellow one is also going to be the small space. And then if we check the red, again, they're going into bigger spaces. So this number 4 fox is going out of the house into outside. And same with this 7 fox, he's going into outside. And this one might be kind of hard to see. I totally get it because, again, I didn't see it at first. But I think something that could help is just thinking about like the differences between comparing which like precise locations are using the same words. Like, for example, you could compare like this little hole in the ground and this little chimney, and this little hole in the ground, this little chimney are using the same verb. Same with this hole in the ground and this little box. So from there you can probably understand that there's going to be some kind of difference between a small place that you're going in or out of and then a big wide open space. So we can just write that in. This is going to be small, this is big, and then small and big. And from there, we should have all the information we need to fill out our sentences at the bottom. And I'm just going to copy and paste all of this over. So I'll cut to when I'm done with that. Okay, so I copied all the information that we had up there down here. And I kind of made sure to do it in the order that these sentences are in. Like we have our more specific locations right here. Like whether they're the fox is above, under, on the side, or in the back. That goes first. And then next is the verb. And we have 4 different types of verbs. 2 of them mean going in. 1 is for going into small spaces, and 1 of them is going into big, like, open spaces. And then same over here, we have 2 words for going out, and 1 of them is for, like, going out of a small thing and then going out of a bigger thing. And then we kind of have the objects of these verbs, like kind of the object of the prepositions in these verbs that are kind of built in. Kichiki is the most specific one, as it refers to just the front of the house or the front door. So that's only if the fox is going into the front of the house. This is the one we use for most of them, where it's the fox is just kind of going in an area around the house, a part of the house. This last word is for if the fox is going somewhere not the house, so like outside in a hole or something. And then finally, all the sentences have wakni because they're all about foxes, as you can see. Okay, so sentence number 10 is, the fox comes out the front door. And we can kind of just go each of these parts of the sentences and see which ones we're going to be using. For these, we're not really going to be actually needing any of these because, remember, if the fox is going into the front door, or somewhere related to the front, we're going to be using kichiki instead of one of these more specific ones. And then if we want to find our verb, we are going to be going out of a bigger space because he's coming out of a big enclosed area. So that's going to point us to text T because he's coming out of a big area. So we're going to be using this. And then finally, we're going to need wakni. So let's put that all together. And actually, we're going to be needing wakni for all of these, so we might as well just go ahead and add in all of them. Okay, for sentence number 11, we have the fox goes into the chimney. So this time we are going to be using one of these more specific words because the fox is on the roof or above. So we're going to be using akpu. And then for the verb, the fox is going into a small area, so we're going to be using tujuyi. And then we're going to be using enchiki for just a general into the house, and wakwi. So let's put that all together. And then just a reminder, the way that we form this long first word is we take the more specific location marker, and then we take the verb and we connect them with one of these long vowels that's marked by a colon. Okay, for number 12, we're going to be looking at the fox comes out of a hole in the roof. So again, we're going to be using this word for above because the fox is again above. As for the verb, we're looking for coming out, and he's coming out of a hole, so that's kind of a big area because he's coming out from like the entire inner space of the house. And then obviously we're going to be using house, so let's put that all together. Okay, for number 13, we're going to be looking at the fox comes in the back door. And as you can see, we have a word here for back of the house, so we're going to be using that. And then for the verb, we're going to be going out, we're going to be coming in, and we're coming into a big space because we're coming into the entire interior area of the house, so we're going to be using tanuyi. And then again, we're going to be using enchiki because he's going in the house, and wakni, so put all together, we have this. Okay, 14 is the fox goes into a window on the side of the house. Again, we don't have a word that specifically means window, but as you might remember from the top, one of the sentences was the fox goes into a flower box on the side of the house, and I'm guessing that lakpa doesn't necessarily only mean flower box, it kind of just refers to anything that's going to be on the side of the house or a position that's on the side of the house. So in this case, we're going to be using lakpa to describe more specifically where the fox is. And then for the verb, we're going to be picking a goes into verb, and if he's going into a window, that kind of implies he's going into the big area of the house. So we're going to be using tanuyi, which is for going into big spaces, and then enchiki and wakni. Okay, and then finally, we're going to be looking at a fox coming out of a flower box on the back of the house. And again, we see that we have chakwe coming up again for back of the house, so we're going to be using that. For the verb, the fox is coming out, so we're going to be using one of these two words. And he's coming out of a flower box, which is like a small enclosed space. We're going to be using tukuta. And of course, these two. And yeah, that's the full problem. Thank you so much to whoever requested it. I definitely want to do more requests because I want to make sure I'm doing the problems that you guys want solved. But yeah, definitely let me know if you have any questions or comments about this. I hope it made sense. I know it's kind of hard with all the different pages and kind of having to go back and forth. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed, and see you in the next one.